Welcome everyone, this is Simon Engelke from Battery Associates, and today I'm really delighted to have Petram with me here, who's from Engineering Industries Excellence, and we're going to talk about an important topic, which is this battery passport. And there's a lot of people who probably have some questions about it, so today we want to do a bit of a rapid fire. And I'm also very excited that Engineering Industries Excellence has been a company member for quite a few years now, and so I've been with them through that process, and it's very exciting to see now all of the work they're doing related to data and battery passports. So Petram, let's get into some questions.
Looking forward to it, Simon.
So let's really start simple, right? So what is this battery passport? And I think it's something some people know more, some less. So what is this battery passport and why is it such a big deal right now? And then also, Petram, from your side, why is this move from a nice to have to a must have for the industry?
Sure. So the battery passport, in essence, is a unique identifier for every battery that's going to be placed on the EU market as of February 2027. It will take the form of a physical identifier, a barcode that's applied to the battery, as well as a digital. And in effect, is a digital twin of that battery. Against it, it will have around about 90 specific data points under 7 data categories. And the regulation is intended to use the battery passports to drive circularity and sustainability with regards to the battery industry within Europe.
That's great. And maybe you can talk about what are some of the key milestones and deadlines companies should already be planning for?
So this is a bit of a tricky one. The definitive deadline that we have right now is February 2027. The regulation states that every battery that's placed on the EU market or advertised to the EU market by February 2027 must have a compliant battery passport. This we know for sure. There are other deadlines which will come into effect, but they're largely driven by the delegating and implementing acts. And much like the technical specifications as well, we're waiting for those to be clarified at the moment.
And are we still in the pilot phase, or are we seeing real rollout in supply chains today?
I would say from the contact that we have, pilot stages are still commonplace at this stage. There are those that have quite advanced implementations, but I think by far and away for the majority of stakeholders, we're still seeing pilot phase, a lot of analysis, a lot of decision-making before mobilization still happening.
Fantastic. And how much uncertainty is there in the regulatory text versus what's now really clear?
I think the fundamentals are clear. And really my message would be that based on my experience of predecessor EU regulation for sustainability, or I should say for supply chain visibility within the EU, it's normal to see the clarity that everyone needs delivered iteratively. And I think if we wait right until the end, we're probably leaving it too late. I would say that right now, the core of what's needed is known. So we know what we have to do. We're waiting for the details of how, is how I would best describe it. I would say we have enough to be able to mobilize, move into pilots, and really determine the majority of how our finished compliance solution is going to look like.
Yeah. And who owns and updates the data along the value chain?
So according to the regulation, the ownership of the battery passports, and with that comes the data accuracy, the data completeness, the data security, is with the entity that advertises or places the battery on the EU market. Now, for different supply chain or value chain stakeholders, that will mean different things, but it will be something in an EV context, it would be something like the OEM.
Great. And what is one misconception companies have about circularity and battery passports that you would like to correct?
I think maybe a misconception, which is understandable and commonplace, is that there will be a single battery passport solution. And I think what's evident, if you really look at what's needed to be compliant, is that you're going to have a number of solutions that work in tandem to deliver that compliance. And I would say that achieving that final compliance will be best achieved in stages to determine, to break up the end goal into manageable segments, into manageable chunks. So I would say, in my experience, that's probably the misconception, that there's going to be a single solution that's implemented that's going to deliver compliance, whereas it's really likely to be a number of solutions which exist today in the economic operators landscape, and some new solutions which we introduced. something like a battery passport solution itself, but also perhaps things like a carbon footprint calculation solution.
And then looking ahead, what will the battery passports mean for the EV manufacturers, second-hand markets, and recycling?
So if we look at what the regulation is looking to achieve, it should mean informed decision-making based on data. And really that's for all value chain stakeholders when you look at the crux of it. So for consumers, you'll be able to make decisions when you're purchasing, let's say, a new battery in terms of the origins of that battery. Is it coming from sustainable sources? Are ESG factors considered? Of course, as well as performance, what is the expected performance of that battery? When you look at second life or second use, it's going to bring about a lot of benefits for that industry because it takes out the guesswork from the state of health, the state of life, the chemistry of a battery. These are things that will be explicitly known by referring to the product passport. And when it comes to, for instance, new commercial models, you can base that on data. You can use the data that you leverage from the battery passports to be able to have a health check between your estimated performance and your actual performance of a battery, and in turn bring about improvements into design, testing, and manufacturing. So I think there's a wealth of data that will originate across the value chain, and different stakeholders for different purposes can benefit from that data.
And then if you had to give one concrete action for the listeners out there working in battery or EV companies, what should they start doing tomorrow to be ready?
I would say the first step, and perhaps certainly critical path and one of the long lead time items, is to thoroughly and deeply analyze your supply chain. That, for me, is the first step to compliance. It's understanding what are the sources of my materials, intermediate materials, what is the associated carbon footprint. And really, I think what economic operators will find is that even for different models or different geographies where batteries might be produced, that supply chain can look different and at times dramatically different. So that's really the first step I would encourage everybody to take, is analyze your supply chain thoroughly and ensure you understand it, because in turn you'll be able to identify the data sources and have the solutions in place to capture that data, to reconcile it and present it in the format of a product passport.
Fantastic. Petra, really appreciate this rapid fire of information about the battery passport. Again, it's a topic which is getting more relevant now as these deadlines, as you mentioned, are coming up. So really appreciate these insights today, and also wonderful to have you as company members with engineering excellence. Thanks, Petra.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.